Shane came to David again and said, I want to do this live, kind of like a full album recording of the band, and I want to do it on a rooftop in Austin. And I said,
well, this was during the time everybody's doing the Facebook concerts. That was originally where the idea came from. Is like, all these bands were doing Facebook shows, but it was just like on their iPhone, and it was like a really bad thing. And he wanted to do this
on a
like
rooftop,
full produced
right,
concert, right? Cool. So nobody could go to them.
But I said, I'll do you one better. We're going to go to the desert.
Yes.
Cool.
And we're going to shoot it out there.
There you go. That's awesome.
I still get on sets. I still get on sets with people who have heard of that.
Yeah,
shoot.
It's kind.
Everything went wrong.
Really?
Everything that God could possibly put on you went wrong, and it still turned out beautiful and it's some of our best work.
Well, one of our questions was the biggest challenges on set. So you guys want to elaborate?
That would be
that one.
That sounds like it would be
That's the one.
It's such a laundry list.
Really?
It started from the very get-go of we didn't have the right budget for it because it was a very huge idea. I mean, it was we're going to take a band out into the middle of the desert
with no, you need generators and power.
I mean, Terlingua has an hour of no cell phone service.
Terlingua also has nothing there.
Yeah,
there's
it's a ghost
not
town.
a lot.
Yeah,
there's not a lot going on there, and they're just down to, is the bus even going to make it down this road, because there's really big divots in it, and I had to fill it in with dirt earlier that day before the bus was going to go through. And then I said, don't let the bus driver go off the road. And they went off the road, and they got stuck.
So they're there for 5 days after, or 3 days after we shot.
The shoot?
But also, this is in September, and a monsoon came through, not in monsoon season. The night, because we got there a day early, and we're setting everything up, and we're going to do a sunrise shoot the next day. And that night, immediately after we had set everything up, on top of this big hill where we have to load a bunch of shit up there, and got a whole dolly up there somehow.
Yeah. We had a Fisher 11 on a track. What? An actual, half semicircle track. And it was not only was it in the mountain range, but then we took it
on top of very steep
of a steep mountain
hill that's a soft, mushy sand. So, if it gets wet, it's basically a landslide situation. I think that night David was having nightmares that the dolly just went off the hill.
Well, it was bad because we got in late, right? It's like a 7-something hour drive to Terlingua. And I have to drive slow because I have a huge trailer full of equipment. We have a dolly, we have all these cameras and tripods and all this stuff in the back. And we get out there, and then we pull it out, and everybody gets kind of pseudo prepped because we weren't going to light it, right? It was just going to be it was inspired from the Coldplay Live from Jordan. So it was basically shooting them as the sun was blew out. It hasn't come up yet, but enough exposure. And that's so we were we're going to shoot it on these FX9s because we've got these, the variable ND that we can just kind of start rolling. That way we're not having to stop down, and traditional cinema camera, you see the stops go. So we shot it anamorphic as well. So we have these huge lenses, huge cameras, and we put a Fisher 11 up on the hill, and we set everything thinking cool, because we have to be ready to rock in the morning before the sun comes up, and it's already dark, so we're not getting any camera tests. We leave everything, and they're and it's going to be recorded live. So we have sound mixers out there who are still doing sound check. It's dark, wind's blowing, and all of a sudden we get a warning that it's going to storm.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
And we had, I think at this point, gotten back to our Airbnb, and the band had basically told us it's starting to get gnarly out here, 10 minutes up the road, and they had to tear down everything that we set up that night.
Well, no, they did not everything.
The sound stuff.
Oh, yeah, the sound stuff. They just put tarps over the Fisher. And so, the brakes are on, but it's on a half track, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we just covered it in a tarp.
Oh my!
And it's a hydraulic system. We're just going tarp it real
Should
quick.
Be fine, right?
And I didn't even see that before I left. Keaton, my dolly grip, was just I tarped it. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then that night the rain comes in, and we this is 2 a.m, and we have to get up at 4, and all of a sudden, there's water coming through the roof of our Airbnb, and we've got camera gear everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we're having to like tarp everything inside the house as well and move shit around. And then we wake up, and as soon as we get out the door, it's like a foot deep of water. And David had left a little bit before the rest of the crew and I went, and he has 4x4 on his car and was able to get through down this really weird road that's like, it's not even washed out. It's
road.
worse than washed out.
Yeah, it goes through 2 river crossings that just completely wash it out.
And no one else, I couldn't get my car through. No one else could get their car through. So all the crew's stranded with me. And then David makes it to the band, and we have to figure out how we can even get crew there if we're even going to shoot anything.
Yeah, and the only people I have in my car is Greg, who I brought out, who's shooting all the drone footage, and his girlfriend, Fallon, who was PAing for us and like helping make breakfast and stuff. And so it's me and the 2 of them, and we pull up, and Shane's tour bus is out there, and they stayed in it that night. And
Because it's stuck.
yeah, because it's stuck.
Oh my God.
And he is mortified because he spent a lot of money to make this thing happen. And obviously we're not, I think he lost. He doesn't think we're gonna be able to shoot anything. I'm like, okay.
But thankfully, Pivot's my middle name.
Yeah.
And I just figure out a way to pivot on everything. And David
But it's
and I-
bad. Guitars are in like the washout, like on the backside of the hill, like stuff is covered in mud. Half the audio equipment doesn't work. And they're not there, right? So I'm like, Shane's like just sitting in his trailer, just upset because, you know, some of the money can like be recovered, but all the rented stuff, like it's, you know, we're kind of in a bad way.
At this point, even if you're able to figure out a way to accomplish something, everyone's in a mood.
Yeah,
You know,
it's not going to go smooth.
It's
you know?
just, it's going to be visible on camera.
We're not getting that pink and purple sunrise that we wanted. And
No, but it's actually pretty cool. By the time we had to cut, we ended up being able to film. We just figured it out. And by the time we had to cut it into 2 segments, because you can see in the background by the time we're shooting the last song, the monsoon, like a rainstorm coming right towards us, like in front of us and behind us.
Yeah.
And I had to call it, and Shane wanted to keep going. And I was like, listen, as the director and producer of this, I'm going to have to say no.
Yeah.
But you are paying for this, and if you want to wreck your gear and keep going, happy to do that.
Well, they lost playback, so they can't even hear themselves.
Right, and it sounds
really?
gorgeous.
It sounds
for
gorgeous
them not hearing themselves.
Yeah, even for if they could have heard themselves, sound gorgeous.
I mean, it sounds like a studio recording.
Yeah. And so we
Really?
pack everything up because I'm watching this hurricane come at us from the horizon.
And we've only made it halfway through the set.
So we're supposed to do 15 tracks. We did 8.
Jeez.
And so we go back and we're sitting there, and Shane is upset. And mind you, we don't have any lighting equipment, right? Because we were just going to shoot as the sunrises, right?
yeah.
Just natural backlit and everything, which it worked out fine because it was just overcast. So it was just like, you know, even. I
Yeah.
mean, and
Pretty
it still looks
soft.
pretty. And we get back and we don't have anywhere we can shoot. We don't have any ideas. One of our cam ops has to go back to Austin with
Both
his
of them
camera that
do.
we rented it from. Oh yeah, both of them do. And one of them we rented his camera. So Mike Kozlenko, he came out and he was B-cam mopping and brought his FX9. He has to go. Ari, who ran the dolly cam, he has to go. Keaton had to go. I have 2 cameras, a rented FX9 of my own, and a set of Atlas Orions, and a set of sticks.
Oh my god.
And so we have no clue what we're going to do. The guy who let us shoot on the land also owned the little church, which is so
Ivies.
funny because I got married in that church like a few years later. But we see this abandoned church and we're like, we're going to shoot in there. And so we waited, and it's the sun, you know, even if it's just flat light, there is still a place where the sun kind of like comes through. And so we put them in the church and we decided to do it acoustic.
Cool.
And so the first 8 songs are full band, you know, and then
The
inside
second
the
half is
church
all
is
acoustic.
all acoustic
Oh, wow.
in the church pews. And it was beautiful.
It still turned out great. But in my position, when everyone's still stressed out and like, I don't really know if this is a good idea, if we want to shoot here, I'm like, y'all, we're losing daylight and we don't have extra light. So if you're going to do this, we have to do it literally right now. And I hate I do not like producing. I only like
Crack the
directing.
whip,
I
yeah.
hate being the person that has to
It's the
crack the whip and
worst.
be the bitch.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Well, but it has to happen sometimes because she has to AD herself on this thing too. So she's directing and ADing. And then it's funny because you look at it and the only way to make it happen is I have one camera on sticks and then I'm on an easy rig on the other one. So we went from 3 cams and all these big movements on the first one to a lock shot. And then I'm on the easy rig floating on the other one. And it was so chaotic to get everything set up. There's one Easter egg in the video that no one ever sees.
The bird?
No, the backpack. The sound guy came in and set this backpack in the background. And mind you can't see it, right? Because we're shooting anamorphic and it's probably 30 feet in the background. But I see this black blob. I just know what it is. And mind you, there's so many things that people don't see, like Bennett's feet are just covered in mud.
Oh, yeah, but that's
like he
organic.
is covered in mud. And we're in this church and then he's got a beer that he's drinking in between little takes and stuff. And it was just this, it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, you
and
guys
if
made
you look behind the scenes of how that happened, you would just be, oh my gosh. Crumbled. Like what is,
How do they
what
make
is
such a
going on?
beautiful piece of art with all of the things?
Everyone knows now, though, because no one can stop talking about how
I mean, all I
horrendous
see is
the
you is
shoot
over
was.
1 million views.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's one of those things that you see and you think, every little movement is planned.
Yeah.
As a sketch.
Yeah, this is
Utter chaos.
Wow,
And
that was
our
perfectly
comms were out
executed.
too and filming
Yeah.
too. And none of the cam ops could hear what I was
No.
saying.
No.
So I was just like tapping them. And thankfully, David and I have developed some language where I don't even have to audibly tell him. I just do a movement with my hand and he knows what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's like we're in a trenches.
That's basically
Yeah,
what we
gotcha,
did on the
gotcha.
duck blind. I was like,
Yep, get that.
It's funny because I'll
Shoot
just
that.
got it.